You are listening.
You are listening.
You're listening to
Do not.
To Not Elsewhere.
Not Elsewhere.
Elsewhere classified.
I get off track, and before I know it, I'm on 15 different
That's
side
all right.
streets. But so yeah, I was interviewing for the back office manager and training role, and that was really what I had my heart set on, and kind of changed gears. And then we discussed it more in the interview, and they were really just really felt that I would be a good fit for that HIM manager and training role. But they said, why don't you take a little time to think about it, and either way we think you'd be a great fit, but we would really love to have someone with that background in this manager and training role. It would be a great kind of transition into that position later, and then into the things beyond an HIM director that you want to do after that. So I thought about it, and eventually called and said, okay, I'm gonna do it. And was thinking, well, at least the thing about, I wasn't sure if I wanted to be an HIM director, but I thought at least I'll have this year to really rotate through and see how everyone runs their shop, and then also get to sit in with CDI and sit in with with all these different departments, and get a really holistic view really of the whole thing. And that to me is a lot of what my brain needs. I gotta know how it all comes together, so I can have a better understanding of what my role is.
Yep.
It's hard to fix a problem or to provide something if you don't really know what it is, how it got there, or what other people are needing from you. So that was really appealing to me. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And so accepted the manager and training position. And a couple days later, they called and said, wow, actually our HIM director at this facility is transferred to a new role. And, we were talking about it, and we actually think you would be a great fit for the director job. And, you just need to interview with the facility. So the way it works is I was a Parallon employee, and HCA owns Parallon, but they also own the hospital. So we're kind of a contractor with the hospital, but we also kind of work for the same, it's a little mixed in, but we're more or less working for the same company. But I was also not an employee of the hospital. So I'm kind of a dotted line to the chief financial officer at the hospital, but I was actually directly reporting to my regional HIM director, who's a Parallon employee. So it was really kind of a whirlwind. I was expecting one thing, kind of decided to switch gears and do another thing, and then was eventually offered an entirely different thing. So that was kind of a whirlwind. And I think that all happened within maybe 10 or so days. I had interviewed for one thing, decided to do the other thing, gone to Tallahassee to interview for the other thing, and then got the offer, and then was trying to scramble, to move. And then it was really, it was really I just hadn't expected to have them change gears about. I definitely didn't expect them to say, oh, why don't you come and interview for that director position after I'm saying I'm gonna maybe do the manager and training position. And I'm like, you guys, maybe we skipped a step. So I think it was I definitely was kind of figuring it out on the fly, a lot of it. I mean, it's okay. Definitely, it was also the first time I'd been in a position that had direct reports. I feel like I've been in leadership roles before, but leadership and a manager are not necessarily the same kind of, so it was a great experience, and I really learned a ton, but also have been able to now, with a little bit more perspective, being about a little over 3 months in my new role, I'm like looking back and thinking, okay, well, where can I adjust, where can I adjust? How could I, or what could have gone better there? Where was it that I struggled, or where was it that I succeeded? And how can I use that to kind of move forward? And so much of this first couple of months for me in this new role has been, a lot of reading stuff, and reading the procedures, and just kind of learning everyone's got a million acronyms in every kind of industry, but also reaching out to other people in my position and throughout, and saying, like, what do you wish you knew when you first started, or what do you wish you had done differently when you first started? And I try as much as I can to learn from other people's mistakes, so I can avoid them a little bit. And some things are unavoidable, but everyone has been, super gracious and with their time. And I think so much of healthcare, I think there's a lot of that, even if there aren't people working by the bedside, people really do care and have an understanding of what we're doing is contributing to healthcare, and really it's easy to forget that when you're not a nurse by the bedside or not physically walking into a hospital every day, but it really does impact, our patients. And I know, what was it, 2019 or early 2020, there was a hospital, I want to say in the Washington, D.C. area, it might have been Georgetown, and they had a ransomware attack and they had to go on diversion and transfer out all of their patients. They couldn't take care. I mean, it really can.
Because their system was locked out, right? I think that's what it was,
completely
right?
locked out.
Mhm.
So, it wasn't even a downtime paper for a month thing. It was a send everybody out until we can get it fixed because we can't care for our patients. And,
Mhm.
it really, the community around there, they have longer transfer, it really can impact a lot of people. And so it really just kept reinforcing for me that it all does matter and it all feeds in and we're all contributing our little piece. But it's about kind of trying to continue to learn and adjust and then just remember what the ultimate goal is, that we're all working towards the same thing, which is take care of our patients and make sure that they're protected and safe and healthy. And that also means taking care of their information and their, in that kind of security realm. So that's been not a huge adjustment from the HIM role, which already has so much privacy and security in that like type of education and what we're kind of focused on in a large part of our role, but just kind of expanding and adjusting it a little bit so far. So yeah.
It sounds like what you're doing is, you mentioned compliance, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere down the line. So it sounds like it could lead into somewhere into compliance, stuff like that. You mentioned, sending test phishing emails.
Yeah.
So
we don't do it, but we do monitor the reports and double failures and things.
Yeah. So that's probably falling into like risk management, that type of thing.
It is.
So like what you're talking about, it allows you to branch out into different areas. Now for like my previous boss, she branched out of HIM and she went into patient satisfaction.
Cool.
Yeah. And the patient experience, those type of roles. And so it's like, it only takes you higher. If you move beyond if you move beyond HIM, you could only go higher than what HIM is.
It's
you
true.
Can't go lower. You could only go higher.
Yes.
And
I agree.
That's the thing. I think what HIM does is that it gives you a good foundation to take to the next, take to the next level, So right now you're like, okay, you're done with HIM. You're done with HIM. You've done it for so long. It's not, I don't want to say it like that, but like,
but I know what you mean.
It's something that you've done. You're past that,
right.
Like you could always go back to it, but it's like, I've, like for me, like, would I go back to CDI?
No.
I've done it for like 12 years. I don't know if I want to go back. Like for me, it's now I'm doing, denials. I work for the insurance companies. So it's like,
so it's an adjustment and
So
and
like,
you're using your experience. That's another example
CDI
of how you're
and
using
coding.
your experience
And I'm looking at it. I'm like, this is just a different vantage point,
Right.
And now I'm looking to more like, okay, like the same thing that you said is like you want to know what the bigger picture is. And so I've always said, like, whenever I'm in my role, I want to know what is it that when I do something, how does it affect everybody else? How does it trickle out?
Stakeholders in my, in my work product. I think that's such a great framework, and especially when you're not dealing with customers or patients directly, people, it's still very much customer service is still a part of it, but sometimes your customer is your coworker in a different department or your team member on your team, and remembering that. And like you said, having a good understanding of who are the people around me and what is it that they need. That can be such a helpful part of understanding your position. And I like your role now, I'm sure you are constantly pulling on your, knowledge and education and previous job experience there. And it lets you bring, more there, and who knows what you can do after you've done this for a while and you're over it and you move on to the next thing. I'm excited to see, because it's really like you said, there are so many different areas, and to hear that your previous boss went into like patient experience and patient advocacy, like that makes a great sense. After having that work experience and knowledge base, she has a great understanding of where those where those areas can come up for patients, because you do work with every department really. When you're working as an HIM director, you're in close contact with every department, whether it's because of records or whether it's because of a privacy issue or whether it's because, whatever it is, you really do end up getting involved everywhere to some extent. And really being able to pull on that and bring it to your other roles is huge. And like you said, it's we, between the ethics and compliance part, and now I'm learning a lot more about risk management, which I've always thought was interesting. And I'm personally a risk averse person in my life in a lot of ways. Not so much with the, job searching, I guess. I'm willing to take a risk on myself, I guess, sometimes. But it's been interesting to get more into that risk part of things. And then knowing that we roll up through an ethics and compliance officer at like our corporate level, our senior VP, and understanding how that compliance is such a big part of this role. And that was true in HIM as well, of course. I mean, so much of it even with the HIPAA and high tech part of it and privacy, but even, billing and coding and all of that is a huge part of being compliant and making sure that you're doing those things correctly and in the right, fashions and not, putting your patients or your coworkers or your company at risk from whatever it might be. So it's been, I think that's such a great example again of just looking at your experience and what do you want to do? What do you think you don't want to do? And for me, a lot of it it's been so valuable even to have a clearer view of what I don't want to do. It's like, I'm not always sure what I want to do. And, every interview they ask, what do you want to do in 5 years? And I have never had I've always said, I'm not sure, but I know I want to be in something where I'm really passionate and interested in growing and learning and still engaged and have a role that I care about. And I think that is really all that you can kind of ask for in a role. I might say I'm going to be somewhere in 5 years and I don't know for sure if that's what's going to happen, but I do know that I want to be working towards, no matter what I'm doing, interested in it and passionate about it. And I don't need to have it be, if I think for people who are in maybe creative industries or different industries, really their job is really their passion kind of thing, where it's like your love and also your work. And I'm not saying it's to that extent, but I do really value, what it is that so many of us do in this industry and supporting our more people who are by the bedside. But then also all of those things do matter. And as I kind of get further along in my career and get older and wiser, I, remember more and more that those little things that aren't as apparent or aren't as obvious when we think about it are really a part of what keeps, everything running, and every department and every person really does contribute to making, things smooth and go better and work better so that people can continue to do their jobs and take care of people. And that's huge. And it's easy to forget and think like, oh yeah, okay. But then after a year like this, especially, when people were having to cancel elective surgeries, which is a lot of how most hospitals really break even there, make their money kind of in those more elective procedures, and seeing them kind of cancel those things. And then every cent really counts there. We're having to really find ways to make sure that we can still balance our budget, but then also take care of people. And a lot of healthcare companies, a lot of hospitals, and really struggled throughout the year. And it's been really interesting to see how lucky we are too to be in an industry where you're kind of protected a little bit from some of the job insecurity that people had over the last year. I mean, I felt so blessed to not feel, to not have to worry about that. That was really
because you just got into that role. Oh my goodness!
Right. Yeah, I mean, I just started. I mean, it's funny because I interviewed there in late February, I want to say. Late February, early March.
Wow.
And I remember I listened to a lot of podcasts, and I was listening to this science podcast, and I'd been hearing about this flu in Wuhan, China. And I'd been hearing about it in like December. And I was thinking like, oh, wow, that's kind of crazy. And then as it started hearing about it a little bit more. And I was like, you never know something's happened and they go away and they don't really become an issue here. But then I went to interview, and they were just doing kind of a practice one and figuring out what their process might be if they had to go to universal masking.
Yeah.
And by the time I started, about a month or so, like a little over a month later, we were, masking fully every day. So in just that little bit of time, there was such a, big change already in the process. And
Wow.
it just was really just interesting to see how quickly we can all adjust and make changes when you really have to, or you don't have another choice really. And
Yeah.
I think so much of our lives, we kind of get into the thing of, well, I'm going to do this job because I don't have another option, or it's the only thing that's available to me. And it's,
And you moved.
when you have to do things, you find that you really can do a lot more. And just, trying to be, I think for me, it's trying to get to a place where I can be prepared or have some, like you kind of a broad base of something to grab from. So when there is some kind of emergency or kind of frantic thing, whether it's just one thing throwing your workday off or in your personal life or whatever, you're not kind of operating from that place of scarcity or scrambling. You kind of have more solid footing to be able to adjust. And I know I want to try and be less reactive to things. And so I'm on a journey there, still trying to figure that out. But it's been interesting kind of seeing how different companies are even adjusting so that they can be prepared if something like that, were to happen again. And which, it's just been interesting seeing how different people have adjusted and what they've done with this year of change and how they've, perceived it. And it's been different for a lot of people. Everyone's had such different experiences, but also a lot of the same experiences. So it's been, interesting seeing kind of what community has come up around all of that change for the last few months and stuff. Yeah.
I do have a question, right?
Yeah.
So let's go back to the question about being asked, what is it you see yourself doing in 5 years, right? So like the way I would answer that is that you there is no definite. It's like I don't know if you're watching Loki. Have you watched?
No, but it's on my list actually.
Okay. So the premise of that is that now there's a multiverse, right?
Right.
And so there's multiple timelines in this whatever multi-universe thing.
Sure.
And so when you think about asking me or anybody, how do you see yourself in 5 years? Don't ever give a definite answer. Always give like if I was in this universe, I would do this. If I was in this universe, I would do this. If everything aligned correctly in my favor, I would be doing this. I would be doing 5 different things.
Exactly.
And so I would never give like, okay, I see myself doing one thing and one thing only. I said, well, if this happened, I would do this. If this happened, I would do this.
It really depends.
Yeah, it all depends on what happens along the way, because you can't again predict the future. The question that I do have is, I'm listening to you, right? And
I'm talking a lot, so
that's okay. No, it's all right. It's right. And so it's helping me kind of like formulate what question should I ask, and it's a good practice for me, because remember in the beginning I had like a list of questions I would do like very scripted, like, okay, we're done with this question, let's go to this question. And I liked how we've changed it up, and you just let you flow and kind of let me kind of listen and see what question I come up. But the question I have is, I'm listening to you now, and I truthfully, I listened to the first one, and you sound so different. So the question I have is, in your perspective, I kind
of need to go back and listen.
Okay, maybe, but I
need to re-listen.
Well, in your perspective, then 4 years ago you were a different person. 4 years and 4 years now, up until now, I can tell you're a different person.
Yeah.
So how would you compare yourself now to how you were 4 years ago? That's a question that nobody ever asks. I might as well ask that now. Like how did you see yourself? Like you discussed everything that you've done up until now. It's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot, especially last year where you just jump into the fire,
right?
into a new job in a pandemic. I mean, add that to your resume. Hello.
Right.
And then looking back 4 years ago, like, how would you compare yourself?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I think, man, it's a great question, because when you're talking about how do you see yourself 5 years from now, it's like, there are going to be so many factors that happen. There's going to, that I could never guess where I would be. And kind of looking back 4 years ago, I knew at that point, I was still kind of on the track where I knew I wanted to be an HIM director. And even then I knew it wasn't a long-term, I knew I didn't want to be an HIM director and retire in that role, but I knew that was kind of a midterm career goal that I wanted to be in that position probably for several, for a good chunk of time and then move on after that. But it was really where I was focused on and what I was pretty sure I wanted to be doing, and was still kind of figuring out, I guess, exactly I don't know if I was figuring it. I feel like I was maybe still in that place of being a little reactionary and just trying to find a way to get my foot in the door. I think especially because I didn't have my bachelor's at the time, and kind of like applied for things and people would say, oh, you'd be a great fit, but we really want this other piece. And then after leaving that coordinator role and finding positions that I really enjoyed and thought were interesting, and I think a lot of what I've learned and how I've changed is what is it that I'm looking at, or what factor, what am I factoring into my decision? And I think before I was factoring in kind of where do I want to be? I guess that's a lot of it. It's funny because I had this last year, there was a kind of a younger person in another apartment that we shared some office space, and he was like 25, and hearing him say all the things he wanted to do by the time he was 30. And I kept saying, listen, life comes at you fast, but in 30 is not as old as you think it is. I mean, you're going to turn 30 pretty soon and you're not going to be so sure. And it's really, for me, a lot of it, I think at the time I was really thinking about where I wanted to get, or where I felt like I needed to get. I think I also had some feeling like I needed to catch up with myself. I don't really, not really comparing myself to other people, but still really comparing myself to the version of myself that I thought I would be in 5 years. I think at that point I was looking back maybe 5 years before that and thinking like, well, where did she want to be? And I got to get there. And now so much of it for me, and how it's still a process and still working on it, is trying to switch away from where do I want to get, not that it's not a part of the calculation, but it's not the whole picture. It's also, like I said, I guess being more holistic about like, how do I want to feel? How do I want to spend my time? What's important to me? And how do I adjust my life so that I can focus my energy on those things, and kind of being willing to adjust and give a little there. And maybe you do have to grind a little bit more at this point and then adjust more later. But I think I am definitely not as interested in chasing not even that I was chasing a title. I think I just felt like that was maybe I'm struggling to articulate it. I guess it just felt like if I can do this thing, then I'm actually seeing some progress in my career. You know what I mean? For what I felt was what I wanted to be doing, or what I felt was going to be the next step, or going to bring the most value to me. And I think a lot of it for me has been realizing that life is going to happen, and you really, so much of life,
it's like you realize your goal wasn't really the goal that you wanted.
Right. And that in pursuing the goal, it's like you really find, sometimes I think we get so caught up in what we're trying to do, and like we were talking about a little, I think maybe before we started recording, but like you're just so in the mix of life and running around and running from thing to thing. And I think for so long I was kind of operating from that place of just trying to figure it out, or running from one thing to another, and trying to find a way to maybe find an opportunity or take advantage of an opportunity that came about, because that's so much of life too, is just being in the right place at the right time and actually being able to take advantage of an opportunity. Is that, I think there is a quote, I'm trying to think, it's that luck is opportunity meeting preparation or something like that. So a lot of times opportunities come up, but if I'm not prepared or not in a position to take advantage of them, then you get passed over. So putting myself in a position to take advantage of things that come up, but also not taking an opportunity that comes along just because it came along. Really taking a minute to think like, oh, I have options too. And, when you're interviewing, and something I always try and remind people of and try and keep in mind is, yeah, you're interviewing, you're trying to make a good impression and prove that you would be a great fit, but you're also evaluating them to see, is this where I want to be? Is this where I want to spend my time and energy on this team? Are they going to have the same, values and the same perspective and, kind of work styles or whatever it is that I want? Am I going to grow here? So I think that's been so much of it too, is remembering that, that I'm bringing something here too. And that I want to find something that I feel is really going to be valuing that and honoring that and growing that. And I'm not only bringing I'm also giving, and and they're
Mhm.
giving, and I'm receiving something from my employer or whatever, any situation really. So it's a lot of it for me, I think, has just been adjusting and realizing that it's not that it doesn't matter at all, but it is certainly not the only thing, or not even the largest thing maybe to think about when I'm trying to figure out what next steps are. And so much of it is just kind of pursuing the thing that feels like it is a good fit, or something that I'm going to enjoy and feel like I can get some value out of and bring value to.
Mhm.
I think especially after, when you've been in positions or in different title, if you've had a few jobs over your life, and I think a lot of people have had those jobs where you're just dreading it kind of every day,
Yeah.
or even if you're not dreading it, you're just bored,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
don't, and not every job is going to be amazing all the time. Even if you do something that you are super passionate about and you love it, every day is not going to be that. You always have to do those things.
Mhm.
But it's about finding something that's not most days, and I can find ways to set up my workflow and my process and my system where I can kind of mitigate some of that stuff for myself, and find ways to just take care of myself more too. I
Yeah.
think that's also been a lot of what I've learned this
Mhm.
year, is that I don't but yes, like step back and take some time to think, what do I want to do? And that's not just professionally, but even in my personal life. So it's really
True.
kind of helped me to grow more there, and just reflect more and take that time to
Yeah.
I guess relax and kind of rejuvenate your energy, and kind of say, oh, okay, I don't have to go all the time. I can relax a little bit and sit back. And so I've been
Yeah.
learning that a lot this year, is that it's okay to take a beat and not constantly be on the run looking for something to do or someplace to be. And I'm always happy to be a homebody or out and about, but I'm also I'm trying to learn to just not completely take it as it goes. Some people are very relaxed. I don't think that I have to change exactly who I am. I think I'm relaxed in a lot of ways, and then in other ways I've always been kind of a more intense energy, and that's okay. Everyone's different.
Mhm.
But I think it's been about finding ways to use that to my advantage, and to feel like I
Mhm.
can take advantage of those times when I do have that hyper focus and really attention to this thing, and able to see that bigger picture, and then also hone in and get really specific, but then also being able to balance it and take the time to just step back and rejuvenate and rest, and that lets you come back and be like a fuller, better version, and bring more to the table, I think. So it's been just learning, and I'm thinking, gosh, like what am I going to be saying in your 200th episode, year 4 or 5, 10? Now I'm terrified. What's she going to be learning and growing? Who knows? But yeah, that 5-year question is always like, I don't know. Do you know where you want to be in 5? It's like,
Yeah.
it's one of those where like you said, there are so many other factors within the world and your life and yourself that we're growing. And I hope that in 5 years, I don't, I hope I'm not in this exact same place. I hope I've grown and changed and
You
evolved
want to
into
see
things that,
progress as you
yeah,
move along.
yeah. And it doesn't have to be a whole shift. And I think you can be in the same position or industry your whole career and still be
Mhm.
growing and
Mhm.
changing
Mhm.
throughout. I think it looks different for different people, but
Mhm.
I think it is still important to be finding ways to kind of to grow and learn and take, and also be taking care of yourself. It's moderation and finding the right balance.
Right.
And yeah,
Now ask me that question.
now I want to know. I really do.
Now
So
ask me
where
that
do you
question.
see yourself in 5 years? Where are you going
No,
to
no,
be?
the
Or
other
where did you see
question,
yourself 4 years
the
ago?
other question that I told you about the 4 years.
Yeah. So 4 years ago when you started this, where did you see the podcast going? Did you did you think that you would be putting as much of your, you really have a great thing going. People really are responding and really love it. And now you're expanding to doing YouTube stuff. So that's pretty cool. 4 years ago, did you have any thought of to where this would go? Or did you just say, we'll see where it goes? Or
No.
yeah.
For now, compared to me 4 years ago, it's I think I was at was it 2017? So I was at a point like I was itching for something different.
Yeah.
I think I just explained that. And my initial thought of creating the podcast was like, how am I going to do this? Is anybody going to even want to be interviewed? And I was just kind of like asking people. And then I remember I have to listen back again, but I know I put out a post somewhere on social media, and you kind of popped in. He says, I have the gift of gab. I'm like, okay, I have nothing really to talk about. There's nothing specific. Let's jump back on. And I know we had a pre-call. Remember that? We had a pre-call. Yeah, we had a pre-call, pre-interview, and we wrote all the questions that we wanted to ask. And so compared to then and compared to now, there is no pre-call. Like what I compared to then and now is like when you are on the Zoom call, this is the first time we're talking. Right. And I've always made it very organic. And I think over the years, it's gotten better. Like, if I'm meeting you for the first time, it's not awkward. It's like, I have a sense of I'm comfortable in connecting with people better than last. You're
really having a real curiosity and asking,
Yeah, exactly. The interview questions has gotten so much better because I think I've learned how to listen. Rather than asking questions, I learned how to listen. And then when you listen, my HIM analytic mind is like, okay, what do you mean there? Yeah. Like what's going on here? What's the trend that I'm seeing here? And that's why I asked you that question about that. Like, I see a trend. Let me ask this question and what she thinks about it. And I think over the years, initially it was an excuse just to talk to people.
That's pretty good excuse,
but then it helped me organically grow a network, and that network in itself, like the people that like they were I don't know if it's really a badge of honor, but like I've been on the NEC podcast, let's connect, and so other people have connected as a result of the podcast. And so that's itself, it's like it's
that's
own
a badge of honor.
Yeah, it's like you have
I think that's cool.
Yeah, you have your own. I guess I created my own network, and that network is networking with each other, and they're doing their own projects as a result of that. I think that's really great.
That's awesome.
What else since then? As far as career-wise, aside from the podcast, like you're talking about, like you try to achieve goals. Like I didn't think I had a goal. Like when I was in CDI, I don't know if I wanted to become I never wanted to become a director.
Right. I remember you saying that.
I was thinking I wanted to be a consultant. I don't know if I want to be a consultant now. Like, it's like I did a consultant role for a company, and I was just like, it's just basically, you're just doing the same job as a contractor, and they label you as a consultant. And then you're just being paid time and a half than what you're making in your regular role. And I'm like, really? Really? I don't know if I really want that. So like, I'm like over the years, I'm like, the roles that I've always aspired as a student, as I reach it, I'm like, this is it. It's like, I don't really want it. And even reaching a financial goal. Like last year was really crazy because I was working, like there was nothing to do. So what do? I just work. I just worked overtime. I did this. I was doing like, let's see, about 96 hours per paycheck, like that's like 16 hours overtime. Wow. And I'm like, like working 6 days a week and over through the summer. And, when I look at my pay stub for taxes, I've reached, 6 figures. I'm like, oh boy, this is 6 figures. I had to do all that just to make 6 figures. People are always like, oh, you got to reach the 6-figure goal. I said, I've reached it. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like what I had to do to get to it,
Absolutely.
But it also changed my perspective a little bit. Is like, if I who doesn't like 6 figures, right? But maybe I'm trying now to figure out a way. Is there a way to reach 6 figures that doesn't require so much work? Can you work smarter and more efficient to reach that? Rather than working 6 days a week, why can't I work 4 days a week to achieve the same financial goal? That's something that I've always kind of tried and figured that out. And that's something like, if you see me in 5 years, that could be, I may be trying to answer that question. So like, I'm always like, okay, what does it feel like to reach 6 figures? I've reached it. I'm like, oh, it doesn't feel great. But now you re-ask the question again. and maybe 5 years, I'll re-answer that question again. Yeah, 6 figures ain't
Right.
great, and also taxes ain't great. Ain't that great either.
Well,
It's horrendous.
but even the thing about whether it's whatever the financial goal is, I think, or if you've got a salary in mind that you want to get a job that's going to get you that pay, I think I've been in a position once where I actually did take pay cut to take a different position because it was kind of a strategic. Actually, when I worked as an HIM coordinator, I'd taken a pay cut from my trauma registrar job to take the coordinator position because I felt that it was, going to be moving my career forward to the thing that I wanted to be, which was, so it made sense at the time. And it was like a calculation that was a risk, and I took it. And then, leaving my previous position, I luckily did not take pay cut. I got a bump. I love that for me. But I was in a position where I was like, I am so unhappy that, the hours that I'm working from 8:30 to 7:30 or 8 at night, most nights of, it was really just, a lot, and kind of forced me to look back at one place and think like, wow, I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not, what, and I'm not even, I just feel like I'm moving papers around. Like this isn't, instead of moving piles of paper around, I feel like I was just moving technology papers around, and whether it's emails or whatever it is. And it made me really reevaluate kind of what is my time worth, really, and what is the tax on that. And I definitely think money is important, and we live in, you can't pay your mortgage or your rent or whatever with happiness, but there's a balance there again. So I think so much of it is like, well, where's my minimum, and then if I can find ways to get beyond that, then awesome. But am I going to be using this extra time or this other money to invest in my personal life and joy and whatnot? And maybe that means for some people, you do a job that you don't love as much, but it gives you enough extra time and money to do the things that you're passionate about. Then for some people, it might be the totally other way, where it's you do a job that doesn't pay much, so you can do the other things that you really love, and it works out. And then I think a lot of people are in the middle. But I think, and it seems like a lot of people this past year have really taken that time to look back and think and realize like, okay, money's not like, obviously it's important. I got to pay my bills, but can I find a way to do that and not be, really grinding myself into the ground and not have any real personal life or other interests. And it really, I think, like you said, that I think that's just building more on kind of the theme, what we've been talking about so much is like taking a step back. It kind of gave you some perspective. I'm sure when you were working throughout the year and you knew you were working extra hours and you see your pay stubs each week and it's more than it normally is because you're doing this overtime. But then to look at your like tax, statement at the end of the year and realize what you got, and it kind of really think forces about it. You to take a minute and have some perspective and think like, yeah, that's great, but what about, it's not the only thing. Kind of like, getting that title is great, or finding that position that you really like is great, but it's still not the only calculation you have to make. Like, life is, it's not that life isn't black and white. It is black and it's white and it's gray and it's, it's not just these binary options. There's so much more to it. And if I think about which I'm trying to think more about, or what are the things that make me happy, or what does that look like for me, or what makes me feel fulfilled, or something like that. I'm trying to think about that more and be more intentional, I guess, and in the things I'm doing in my personal and professional life. And, I think that's so much of what progressing in your life and career are. I hope that people have more time to sit back and really think about what do they want to do, and not just have to operate from a place of what I have to do to get by, or what do I need to do. And, there's a lot of privilege to be in a position where I'm not in that place anymore. And I definitely have been. And so it feels good to have that distance, but it's still, there's never a bad time to try and find a way to take care of yourself, or invest in yourself. And maybe that means going back to school, or maybe that means taking up a hobby, or going for a walk. It could look differently for everybody, because everyone's got different things going on with their life. But I think I've really been trying to figure out how I can focus my energy on the things that matter. There's that saying that's like, you show me your budget and I'll show you your values. And I think it's kind of the same thing with time. So it's, show me where you spend your money as a company and I'll show you what you actually care about. And it's also show me where you spend your time and I'll show you what you really care about. And am I spending my time doing the things that are really going to help me get to where I want to be? And where is it that I want to be, or how I want to feel when I get there too? Like, sometimes you get someplace and you've worked yourself to the ground to get there and you're too exhausted to enjoy it. So how can I'd rather take a little more time maybe to get to those financial goals, but be really happy and have a more full life when I get there. So I think trying to think about that more. And like, as you were talking about it, like before, you were in CDI and then in the HIMD, and then you were doing contracting, like kind of going from things to things and feeling a little like restless is the word that I think I've been using to describe like my career feelings for so long.
To find your place.
Right. Just trying to cast about, and I think see what fits. And like you said before, like worst that can happen is that it's not a fit and you do something else, or you try something else, or you stay put until you figure something else out. But I'd rather try and see rather than kind of sit and just be afraid to take a bet on myself.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been really grow that and grow your community. And like you said, you're creating networks and people are creating networks off of that network, and it's awesome. Yeah.
So cool. You know how much time we spent? Almost 2 hours.
All right. Okay.
No, did you realize it's been 2 hours?
I didn't. Time flew. No, but it's been great catching up and getting to, I talked for probably an hour and a half.
That's okay.
But it's been really nice getting to, see kind of how you progressed and how much you've really just grown this thing from 4 years ago. It's like hearing it was 4 years ago. I was surprised.
I know. I surprised myself.
Episode,
yeah.
And I thought, oh yeah, that's so cool. It's been 100 episodes. I'd love to come back, but I didn't think about the timeline there. And so I think it's things like that are a great opportunity to look back and have some perspective.
That's right. Yeah.
And yeah, it's cool to see and to hear how you felt at that time and where you've grown and how even like you said, your interview style has kind of progressed and changed, and it might change again, but it feels more true to you now. And I think that works. And it really does have people really want to talk and give you, what you do get to the real conversations more, I think, easily when you're really genuinely just asking questions. And I think you've really continued to progress in that style, and you're, grown as an interviewer and as a podcaster, and it's cool.
How many years of experience would you say you have had?
Right. Well, my first, I guess it depends. I guess my first position, well, I guess it depends. I was a patient experience representative.
Just in healthcare in general.
That I'd say it was 2009. So
2009, wow.
And that was, I was still, I think it was like 19 or 20. So I was like in school and working with this.
So you would say like what is that? 2009 to what, like 12 years of healthcare experience.
Yeah.
So this year, the reason why I asked that, because this year I just realized it's been 20 years for me.
Well,
when
someone say that at work, oh, I'm having my 20th year anniversary. I'm like, what? How does that happen? And this is how it happens. You just keep showing up every day, and then after a while, you've been doing it for a while.
I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Didn't I just graduate? Like I keep on thinking I just graduated like yesterday, and now this year I'm like, wait a second. It's been.
I think that's exciting. That you can get to 20 years and still feel, you still have, a lot of interest and passion, and you're still open to doing and trying. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think so much of the time, people just get so stuck and caught in whatever it is that they've decided they're going to do, and that you're willing to expand and look and see what else works. I think that's part of what keeps you, excited and growing, is that you look back and think, how's it already been 20 years instead of it's only been 20 years, I feel like I've been doing this forever. You could have gone the other way. So that's good.
Yeah. I think the one that sparked me was that was Stacy Buck. She said, 20 years I was the FHIMA president. And I'm like, what year was that? Right. And she said it's 2000. I'm like, wait a second. And I did the math, and I'm like, wait a second, I'm coming up on, I'm going up on 20 years myself. Right. And I'm like, have I been in the industry that long. I feel
Yeah.
like I feel like after 20 years, I'm not finished. Like I still got
Right.
I still haven't learned enough after 20 years. Like I
That's
still
exciting, I
to me
think.
it's like I
Yeah.
still need to do more.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully by 30 years, like, most people retire after 30 years. By 30 years, I'm like, I still need to do more.
Right.
I think
There-
that's how
There's
you should
still,
approach it in your career. Like if
yeah.
you feel like you're like somebody, Jim Zellum said to me, he was one of the podcast episodes. He said, when you reach perfection, just quit because there's nothing
You
else to
can't,
do.
it's
Yeah,
downhill
there's
from
not,
there.
you can't go, to the next
Right.
level after that. And I'm like, okay, well, if I reach 30 years, how am I going to feel after that? Like,
Right.
even after with this podcast, if we reach 200 episodes, like, am I going to get bored? Am I going to stop
Right.
after 200 episodes? I mean, I've seen like, podcast, you've seen it. Podcast
Yeah.
episodes go into like the thousands or something like
Yeah.
that, like 500s or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess let's keep it going. People
Until you
like
don't
it.
want to anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a huge audience. I mean, to tell you the truth, it's not a huge audience, but it's nice to see, at least for me, feedback. Once in a
Right.
while, I'll get comments from like random people, who I never thought would like ever listen to it. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
listened to your podcast. Oh, I remember, because
That's
of the
awesome.
YouTube channel. I remember this podcast
Yeah.
episode you did, and people are now using this podcast episode for assignments.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, I guess
Yeah.
I'm doing something,
I think that you are. I think it's kind of like what you're talking about with the reaching that dollar amount or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, well, if your goal is something that's that, I guess, solid or set in stone, like this dollar amount or this time period, then once you get there, you've gotten there, and what are you going to do? But I think if your goal is like to be happy or grow or learn, then there's always going to be more learning to do. There's always going to be more growing to do if your goal is to, be whatever your passion is, if that's like contributing to your community or your family or whatever it is, then you can have other, you can still have other solid goals that you can pass. But then once you've gotten them, it's not such a drop in your whole everything else, because the one thing that you've been working towards you've gotten, and now it's done. You're always trying to grow, and it's I've seen, like you said, with podcasts, it's like some people go into thousands and then they quit, or some people keep going forever, and then sometimes people just adjust it and add another host or change it. There's just like your career or anything else, like I think you will continue to make it work and fit for you. And I'm excited to see what your 200th, 300th, 400, who knows?
We'll see. We'll see. I have I don't want to, like, even with my YouTube channel, like, I thought I could transplant audiences, like from Facebook to YouTube, from Instagram to YouTube, now I'm doing TikTok, from TikTok to like Instagram.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm doing those crazy videos.
Cool.
It's like anytime you start something new, you have to start from the beginning. And with the YouTube channel, it's like I always have to tell myself, like, I look at the numbers, I'm like, it's all right. It's not podcast stuff, but because the podcast actually performs better than the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I always have to revert back to what was I thinking back in 2017 when I first started.
Right.
Did I have high aspirations? No. So like when I do this YouTube channel, I'm like, do I have high aspirations? No. Do I need to be cranking out like videos every day? No, because I mean, if the numbers are not there yet, I mean, there's not a need for it. But at least I am what people would say, increasing my digital footprint.
Yeah.
I
mean, the consistency is there, and the more you're doing it, when people do find it, you've got all of this, information and backlog, like you said, for people to use in classes or in whatever, and just learning about the industry. And maybe the YouTube channel is smaller now, but in 4 years, your 200th episode, it could be your main focus. You never know how things are going to change. So, and even if you're just a little interested, you're contributing to that, and maybe that'll work out and maybe it won't. And either way, you'll be doing something you're interested in. And I think that's what it's about, is trying to find something that interests you and makes you want to do this thing and buy a microphone and get off the kitchen table and get off the rice cooker and into the studio
and have my own office. This is my own office now. So it's just like,
Right.
it's weird. Like, yeah, from kitchen counter to your own office could maybe create an own studio. I have
Yeah.
no clue. I keep on saying like, maybe I'll make a Netflix documentary, maybe on coding and HIM and CDI and revenue cycle.
I watch it.
Yeah. I mean, all I need, there are Netflix documentaries that just have like four 1 hour videos. I mean,
Yeah.
how hard is
They're
that?
short. People make shorts.
Yeah, just it. Get it sold.
There's making it work for you. It doesn't have to be, I think that's so much of what I've learned too. It doesn't have to be what other people have told you that your HIM career looks like, or that your podcasting career looks like, or what your documentary that you're going to make looks like. If it's you can take pieces of things from other people, learn from that, and make it fit you. I think that's what I'm trying to do.
I think that's what it is. And maybe the next thing that I've seen, I keep on referencing it, is what Tim Ferriss did.
Mm-hmm.
He turned his podcast into a book, actually 2 books.
Yeah.
He took the art.
I knew it was one, but I don't know if he.
He did 2. He made 2 of them now. I think he's on his way to make a 3rd from all of his podcast episodes. So I'm like, okay,
that's something.
I'll maybe create a textbook or something.
You're learning from that, so who knows where you'll go with that. I mean, that's really cool to see that people are just looking for finding opportunities and being open to something. Someone, he maybe never thought he was going to write a book or didn't have interest in writing a book, and just continuing to do the thing that he was doing eventually put him in a place to do, this other huge thing. And whether it's something he wanted to do or not do, he wouldn't have gotten there if he hadn't been consistent in that other thing. I think that's so much of it too, is the consistency, like not having to do one big heavy lift to get somewhere. If you're just consistent, after a while you will get there. Eating the elephant one bite at a time kind of thing is what I keep trying to tell myself, because I get so caught kind of in the big picture.
I remember that. I remember that from the first interview. Yeah, that's what you said. Yeah.
Did I say? Oh wow,
you did. I'm like, wait, I think I got it from you.
Honey, wow. Well, I'm still learning. I'm learning from my past self. I've learned since then, and I'm still learning from that. And it's your whole life you can always learn from somebody. So I try to keep an open kind of mind.
All right. Well, we have reached 2 hours already. Let's just finish this up. I'm not going to do any of the follow-up questions. I'm just going to thank you, Charlita, for being on the 100th episode and the, inaugural YouTube video on the Not Also Classified podcast YouTube channel. Is there any final parting words you want to say before we end for tonight?
No, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for having me back and having me on the first time. I've always enjoyed all of our conversations, have always been great. And it's awesome to see what you've contributed to this community and what community you've grown and network you've grown. So I think that's awesome, and I really appreciate it. And excited to see what your next 100 episodes are. And I just hope everyone continues to keep working towards that thing and really think about what you want to be doing and what you want your life and work life to look like, and pursue that and not focus so much on the other things.
All right.
It will follow. Put in the work, it'll follow. Yeah. The rest will follow.
Cool.
medicalcodinggeek.com